Hello there and welcome to the T-Junction. I'm Jats. Now in this episode we are going to be looking at government legislation that's pushing us all down the route of EVs. Why is the government doing that? Periodically the European Union brings out these emissions legislations, diktats if you want to call them that, governing cars and what they emit out the tailpipe. Now the Euro 6, which is what we're in right now, is actually already very tight, but Euro 7 takes things to a different level. It's actually reducing or limiting the amount of nitrous oxide that's emitted from a car to less than 16 milligrams per kilometre. Now NOx is really bad for the respiratory system, and I think it's a really good thing to be getting things like that out from the local air that we breathe. And very old diesels aren't great for that, so if you do own a very old diesel, you're going to find it's not ULEZ compliant and it's going to become quite antisocial as a result of this sort of stuff. But Euro 7 also brings in things like limits for tyre and brake wear particles. I mean, did you know that that was even a thing that's being considered? Well, they're doing that. But of course, all of these things mean that car manufacturers and the makers of brake discs and pads and all the rest of it, all the associated industries, have to start thinking about what's coming in these Euro legislation type things, these diktats, and they have to start building the requisites into new designs and launches of their products leading up to any Euro directive that's coming in. Let me give you an example of the sort of stuff that's come in recently. Now, if you own a modern diesel, you might be aware of something called AdBlue. AdBlue is a chemical that you have to put into a separate tank in your car, and what the car engine does is it mixes that with diesel and then it breaks down the NOx into nitrogen and water, which is not harmful. So there are some benefits of these things, but they all add cost and they all mean redevelopment and all the rest of it. And of course, car manufacturers have perfected, petrol and diesel engines over decades and decades, but all these little things are now coming in and making them incredibly complicated and very difficult and very costly to manufacture and produce. So new cars that are sold right now in early 2025 will probably already be compliant or will be modified or phased out by July 2025 when Euro 7 comes in. So what about government legislation then here in the UK? Well, locally, we've all heard about ULEZ and what that actually means for us. Then if you start looking a little bit wider than that, there have been some global climate accords which have led to something called the Zero Emissions Vehicle Mandate, or the ZEV mandate. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but you will have heard about, the ban of petrol and diesel cars from 2035. Well, the ZEV mandate has actually brought that target in. It came in from the Global Net Zero Initiative. Now, it doesn't actually apply, believe it or not, to any makers of cars that sell less than 2,500 cars here in the UK. For example, like Ferrari. I mean, the irony for the rich is just, well, it's mind-boggling really, isn't it? But most developed countries have adopted this ZEV mandate, and that includes countries like China and the USA. Now, the ZEV mandate was introduced last January in 2024, and it states that 22% of new cars must be battery electric vehicles. That 22% ramps up to 80% by 2030 and 100% by 2035. Now, Labour's Manifesto promise was to bring that 2035 target back down to 2030, and that's what's being mooted right now. It's come under some very, very heavy criticism. Now, surely that you'd think that they'd do a consultation and a proper real one before plonking a date into a manifesto, wouldn't you? Now, the ZEV mandate is punitive too. There is a penalty of up to £15,000 per engine vehicle that's sold over and above the target. So if you don't hit your target of 22%, guess what? You're going to have to pay £15,000 per vehicle, or up to £15,000 per vehicle that doesn't have an electric battery in there or has got an engine in there. Now, manufacturers can bank any excess if they overachieve their target or sell it on to others. So, for example, Tesla, who I'm sure you know is a 100% electric car company, could sell its overachievement to another manufacturer. Manufacturers that are struggling to meet that 22% EV target could decide to reduce or even periodically stop the manufacture of engine cars to keep them below the target that's been set for their battery electric cars. Now, that would effectively shrink their engined car business altogether, wouldn't it? People might stop buying petrol engine cars, run their existing cars longer and not buy an electric car. And I think there is a serious risk of that happening. Now, it's leading to a closure of engined car production lines at Vauxhall in the UK, and that's got the potential of job losses. Now, you might find that they're going to have to augment later elsewhere, but that augmentation for a battery vehicle, is that going to happen in the UK? Or are they going to move their production out somewhere else? You just don't know. And what we could be doing is shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, when talking about the ZEV mandate on their website, the government states, Following extensive consultation with industry and manufacturers, the mandate provides them with the certainty they have called for to safeguard skilled British jobs. Well, the economic impact of the Vauxhall closure could be £310 million, I've read, just on Luton alone. Now, I don't really get how that's safeguarding jobs at all. And at the same time, grants and EV subsidies have gone for buying an electric car. And even where they exist, they might not be 100%. So, for example, landlords can only claim up to 75% with a maximum of £350 towards the cost of a charge point. Why can't they just make it 100% or have a higher limit? Because you can't really get a decent enough charger for £350, but maybe they don't care about that. Now, vehicle excise duty or road tax on EVs is being introduced from April 2025 too. And the benefit in kind company car tax break, if you want to call it that, which was set at 2% for a little while now, is going to go up to 9% by 2028. And it starts this year, ramping up. Now, in October 2023, the government at the time issued their zero emissions vehicle mandate and CO2 regulations cost benefit analysis. It aims to clarify the government's rationale, and it talks about why the government is doing what it's doing. It mentions legal implications if the UK fails what has been mandated. So, really, you've got to sort of think about this, that maybe the government, with the accords that they've signed up to, could be in some legal difficulties if they don't meet these requirements. So I suppose the question is it realistic and achievable to get 100% battery electric vehicle car sales by 2035 at the latest, let alone 2030, as per the Manifesto promise? I suppose engine cars on the road after that are going to, pay a huge penalty. So if you do run your petrol or diesel engine cars beyond 2030 or 35, expect tax and fuel duty cost rises. You've got to really, haven't you? But please let me know in the comments what you think and whether this is all pie in the sky and whether these things are really going to materialize or not. I'd love to know what people think about what's going on and specifically what you think. Now, did you know that China and the USA have also agreed ZEV mandate targets too? Now, they are obviously the biggest polluters probably on the planet. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, the SMMT, published regular statistics on car sales. Now, our outturn against the target of 22% was 19.6%. Now, that 19.6% doesn't seem right, does it, when you consider that 1 in 10 car sales was to private individuals, like I said earlier? Well, I think that higher figure is driven by the larger proportional take-up of battery electric vehicles by businesses. I think that's the only thing you can assume there. Now, is this why there are some spectacular deals on EVs right now? Because they need to shift more of them. Now, you can see some amazing deals advertised by the Chinese company called BYD, and they really, really do look like great deals because their cars seem very, very good. I've had a good look at the BYD seal. I've got to say, it's a fantastically well put together car, certainly by the way it looks. Now, the value of those discounts that they gave in 2024 to encourage take-up, if you like, of battery electric vehicles to hit the target, guess what they were? It was £4.5 billion worth of discounts in 2024. That's completely unsustainable for an industry. I just don't think they can give that kind of discount again. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in 2025. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Now, if you've liked this episode, please do hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We could really do with all the support we can get. The target is to try to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2025, which is a really tall order, but we're going to go for it. We've got great aspirations for the year ahead. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.